So we're going to slide right into this next session, so thanks for sticking with us. This is actually our second featured case study. We're doing a lot of these peppered throughout the program, as you can probably tell. And our goal is to really, as advertised in the conference theme, give you a lot of kind of tactical, actionable stuff. So hence these case studies to talk about what's working and not working, but through the lens of a specific kind of campaign or case study. And this is one that's kind of close to my heart in being an analyst that covers mobile, the tactics of location-targeted mobile advertising, which of course xAd is a leader in. But in this case, getting into one of the holy grails of local that we've been talking about for years, which is driving and attributing activity between the online and offline worlds. Of course, an ongoing challenge. So we're going to have Alina from xAd here to talk about that. Alina, why don't you come on up and please join me in welcoming Alina.
Hi, thank you.
Let me get you the clicker and you can go right into it, and then we will meet back on stage after to talk.
Okay, perfect.
Go for it.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing? Wonderful. I'm trying to liven everybody up. It's like I'm in this wonderful spot after lunch-ish, not quite at drinks yet. So I'm going to make you do jumping jacks if I don't get any questions later. Hi, everybody. My name is Alina Greenstein, Senior Partner and Developer over at xAd. I'm here to talk about the media multiplier effect and the power of location. Before, you guys were not kidding about this clicker. Hey, I got some fancy builds. I'm very proud of them.
Tell a joke.
Yep, this is the next slide. If it works, great. If not, I can just talk without them. No, this is totally fine. I'll just continue forward. So who are we? Who are the companies here that we're going to be discussing? So the first company is Outfront Media Network. Anybody here from the out-of-home space? Not a single hand. Wonderful. So that's why I'm here to explain it. Outfront Media is a North American company that has billboards and transit media across the US and Canada. So when you guys are in any of the top markets, especially top 70 markets throughout the country, and you see a billboard or a piece of transit media, look at the little sign underneath. It's very likely it's purple and it says Outfront on it. So check it out next time. xAd, as some of you know, is a company that I'm from. xAd is a location-based marketing company. We actually focus on working with a lot of the large media organizations that specifically have regional and local focus, reaching that regional and local client. And what we do is we actually help them find their own audiences on our platform, build on those audiences, and re-expose them, right? And so what we've actually done specifically within this partnership is help do exactly that for an out-of-home company. So Outfront has out-of-home media assets. What we do is custom build geofences through the Outfront mobile network to be able to find those audiences in the same location at the same time, same ad they're going to see up on a billboard, down in their hands, re-expose those audiences and continue to build on those over time. Everything you're going to hear in this presentation is specific to out-of-home, but keep in mind that this is really meant to be able to think about any type of core media asset, anything from radio, TV, print, digital, etc. So, media multiplier effect. This cannot be a new concept for anybody in this room, right? And I want to be very transparent about that. What we're here to talk about today is not just mobile is great, everybody should be doing it. It's about how can I take something and actually find something that I put together that's greater than the sum of its parts to my benefit, to my own core media, right? And so before we even start talking about why Outfront specifically went into working with a mobile company, why are we going to be pairing out-of-home and mobile together? It's because everybody says we should do it. Mobile's prolific, baby, right? That's a really good reason to do it. But it should make sense. Think about zero in on your core audiences and think about what they're doing in their natural behaviors in the same place, or how you can create connections between those same users. And that's how you can be able to do this successfully. And so what we did is think about, okay, well, what are some of the statistics that we see out there about out-of-home, on-the-go behavior? So first of all, 70% of behaviors happen on the go. 70% of people actually spend their time out of home. 68% of mobile behaviors happen on the go, which happens out of home. I'm going to get you guys to get excited about this very soon. And then there's actually a lot of neuroscience studies, specifically a neuroinsight study that came out and talked about how 48% of the time, consumers are much more likely to engage with a mobile ad after seeing that exact same ad on an out-of-home ad. Well, there we go. Now there's a reason for the two to work together, right? We're not just McDonald's trying to sell Big Macs and using it to sell more fries too. We're now starting to think about value meals. So how does this all start to come together for clients specifically? So we're going to talk about a local Pandora franchisee in Miami. So originally, this was a client that Outfront had for, I believe, well over 4 years. Bought many different billboards throughout the entire area over the year for different holiday events and sales. The campaign was always grounded in out of home. First thing to talk about, everything is always grounded in the touch and feel media, as I like to call it, in traditional media. How are we going to start building on that and using those same behaviors of the audiences that we're finding in that proximity to build a better story and to build more accountability for the campaign? And so the same little hipster right here that we're seeing get that ad on his phone, he was served in proximity of all of these billboards, as well as the 4 store locations that they were looking to drive to during the holiday season. He was served the same ad he saw on the billboard on his phone. Really important thing to keep in mind here, this was not a Chinese menu of options from which Pandora chose from. This was a hard bundled value meal proposition, right? There is no out-of-home and mobile. This is location-based marketing at its core. Thinking again about those behaviors of the same consumer in the same place, just getting the ad a few times. And then what was actually really great about Pandora is, they're saying, I don't want to just do mobile for the sake of mobile either. They're also thinking about the consumer as well. So this is the holiday time period. This campaign ran from around November to early January. And think about, husband doesn't know what to get his wife. All of a sudden, he gets an ad, and ideas spark. Now they wanted to be able to use that to promote an offer. So I think it was for every $125 purchase or more, you get a free ornament. How exciting. They gave consumers a reason to engage. And then drove them to the homepage. Broken experience completely. We really need to think about, and I think it was mentioned before by the gentleman right before, is think about in that moment, what are people doing? If you're trying to get somebody to go to your store, are you going to drive them to your homepage? Potentially. Maybe there's something that they want to look at. But think about what they're doing in that moment. How can you give them the pieces of information that they need to convert further, right? And so what we included was a location landing page. How do I get to the nearest location from where I am right now? How can I click to call? How can I click to social media? How can I click to the site? How can I click to get any information that I need? And optimized for those engagements. What were the results? They were terrible. I'm kidding. They were fantastic. So when you talk about, I told you about my builds, guys. I'm very excited about them. When we talk about the typical engagement that we see, typical benchmark that we see is about 3% secondary action rate. We saw over 15% secondary action rate. 15% of people that actually engaged on that banner ad continue to go down that purchase cycle. That's clicks to call, clicks for directions, clicks to site. What was really great about this campaign is that A, out-of-home clearly is the best primer for mobile. It worked. This is not just another digital thing that you can resell. This is something that's clearly consistently working for this particular campaign and actually continued to result into a renewal, not only with this particular program, but in other markets. This opened the conversation for more out-of-home plus mobile, not just more mobile, in new markets, as well as open the conversation to talk to other franchisee businesses about how you can use this priming effect to be able to bring the two together. I think what's really important here ultimately to remember is that we want to make sure that everything that you're doing with multiple media processes together is consistently replicable across all of your different partners. And so, the thing that we talk about a lot is really think about your audiences and your core. Don't just work with somebody because you want to be mobile. Don't just work somebody you want to be digital. Because if it's not something you can replicate for a very long time, then maybe it's not something that's actually going to be successful for you. I really kept my presentation short. So with that, any questions?
Yeah, why don't we sit down? We'll unpack that a bit further. So as I was sitting there too, this is one thing struck me is that often the example of some of the most kind of primitive media kind of attribution metrics traditionally have been billboards because this probably isn't the case these days, but traditionally it is literally someone there counting cars driving by.
Yep.
So you're bringing, infusing a lot more kind of digital attribution to that, obviously. Now, I think the message came across well that there's a certain cascading effect, or a whole is greater than the sum of its parts, with that brand repetition in different places. What's the next step? Is there an opportunity to, you talked about secondary actions, so there's certainly following down the path to purchase. I know xAd also has a great capability to kind of geofence activity. Are you also seeing that someone showed up at or near a Pandora store 2 months later?
Yep, absolutely. I think that the most important thing to keep in mind is scale.
Yep.
So we wanted to make sure that what we do will work across the majority of every single campaign. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Location is a really powerful thing, especially when you talk about local businesses and driving local sales, obviously. And so what we want to think about is how is where you are and where you've been and where you're going a great indicator of who you are. I can try to reach somebody that I think is 65 and older, person that is at golf courses and community centers, but if you go to hot yoga and they'll go get a burger at McDonald's, like that's where I need to find you. I don't need to make assumptions about who you are.
And who we are is a function of where we go. So you guys are doing a lot in the audience targeting too. Now let's talk about the art of the geofence, because often it's some of the more blunt practices of geofencing have been circles or squares or other things, and the real world doesn't fit into those nice symmetrical
They
shapes.
certainly don't.
So you guys have done a lot with these kind of polygon shapes that are more relevant to, is that a parking lot? Is that the highway? Is that the, just the nearby things? You've overlaid some of that more relevant. Talk about that.
Yep. So that's part of our core technology, which is called blueprints. And you said it exactly. Not everything fits into a perfect circle or square. So what we want to do is think about how can we find using location knowledge. So a lot of our partners, they are the ones that understand those particular locations better than anybody else. I am not an expert in Louisville, Kentucky, but I can tell you the folks in Louisville at Outfront definitely are more than I am. How do they understand the intricacies of that? Pass it on to us so we can create what these boundaries look like, and then help them build location-based audiences based on that. Yeah. You are either currently near that particular asset, or maybe have been near that particular asset in the last 90 days. You're still the same person, and I want to continue to use where you've been and where you currently are to start to build audiences based on that.
And there's a lot of relevance that can be gained from other kind of signals, such as, are you in the parking lot of the car dealership, or are you driving by at 60 miles an hour? That might have some relevance in terms of the messaging that you're then served. Charlie, it looks like, do we have, nope, nothing now? Okay. So what, there's a great example, Pandora. Are there certain verticals you're finding this kind of indexing higher or lower in, or certain types of verticals or product categories that this combination of outdoor, out of home, and mobile is particularly shining?
Yep. I think anything brick and mortar is always a slam dunk. Believe it or not, you would think, I'd get a lot of questions about, I can see this being really easy to sell this for a pretty inexpensive purchase like a taco. I could sell tacos all day long with cheap mobile ads and billboards that don't cost me too much money. But actually, believe it or not, we've seen a lot of success with much more considered purchases. Going to university, for example, getting an education, going to a particular hospital.
Interesting.
Both urgent care and non-urgent care. Auto is probably 30% of every single campaign that we run. These are very considered purchases. That's where the media multiplier effect really does come into play, building frequency over a period of time with the right users, and plus the ROI is really great because it doesn't take much to get somebody in the door, but but the conversion rate's pretty high. Yeah,
well that makes a lot of sense because of those considered purchases have that long buying cycle when the brand repetition can really start to shine.
Absolutely.
And then also the value of those leads and what you're doing for those advertisers is huge if you're talking about a tuition or a car. I mean, those are just high value leads.
Yep.
So really good stuff. We're out of time unless, Charlie, there's any questions? Okay. So please join me in thanking Alina.
Thanks
and
very
you'll
much.
be available after for the rest of the day to engage with these people? Sure.
Yep.
So thanks again.
Thank you.